such a strange and amusing place. One day you buy him rocket ship underpants, and then the next they're in outer space. Mama, don't you know you keep the whole world turning round?
Hi, Paige and Gretchen. It's Shana. I'm the writer and director of The Greatest, and it's so great to be on Mommy Cast. I wish you guys were here.
Oh, thanks, Shana. We wish we were there too. I actually read that your greatest influence were your parents. How did they inspire you?
I think my parents gave me something to write about. I mean, when I was a kid, I was raised by a single mom, and we kind of struggled, and we didn't always have luxuries around us. And I think my mom taught me a lot about gave me my drive to succeed. And there was always unconditional love in my house, and I always knew that I was very loved, and that gave me kind of the self-esteem that I needed to follow my dreams. And then from a writer's perspective, I think my parents were both kind of characters. They were great characters. So I was pretty shy as a child, and most of my childhood I kind of just sat back and watched them and observed them. And I mean, I always say if it hadn't been for my parents, I wouldn't have anything to write about. So they definitely were a major inspiration in all of my stories that I tell.
The movie The Greatest deals with the loss of a child. And I know that in your research for the film, you met with a lot of parents who had lost their children. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
I did a lot of research, and I spent a lot of time talking with grieving parents, and that was really important because I wanted this film to be authentic, and I was really making it for parents that had lost a child, and really for anybody that was grieving, which I think everybody that you talk to is probably grieving someone. I mean, we're all affected by loss. And their stories in particular, the stories of these grieving parents really inspired me, and it was their honesty and their vulnerability of being brave enough just to share what had happened and what the experience was like that really inspired a lot of my material. I listened quite a bit to this podcast called Healing the Grieving Heart with Gloria Horsley, and each week parents would call in and talk about what it was like to lose a child, and it was their stories, like specific stories that, as a writer, I mean, I don't have a child. I just got married. I haven't started a family yet. So for me to write about what it was like to lose a child, I needed their help. I needed these people's stories.
So we know you have no kids yet, but I think I read that you wrote the script with a baby on your lap. Is that right? Were you a nanny?
When I was writing this script, I was working as a nanny for a baby that was I think she was 4 months at the time. And because I was working long days, I would take a journal with me to work. And whenever she would nap, which was like 3 times a day, I would take out my journal and she would nap on my lap, and I'd start writing, scenes from The Greatest. And having this baby that I loved so much, it kind of gave me the insight of what it would be like to have something that you love so much taken away from you. And although I'll never, ever understand what it's like to lose a child, because I don't think you can understand what it's like to lose a child until you have lost a child, I had this immense amount of love for this baby that was right there in front of me. And she inspired my work, for sure.
Tell us about your new movie coming out. I think it's called Love Don't Get Me Down. It's with Gwyneth Paltrow and Tim McGraw from The Blind Side.
We loved him in that movie.
It's a musical, right?
It's a musical drama set in the world of country music. And Gwyneth Paltrow plays a country superstar that's kind of struggling with her own demons. And it's about her going on a comeback tour. And on the comeback tour, she takes this young beauty queen, who's played by Leighton Meester, and this young up-and-coming singer-songwriter played by Garrett Hedlund. And Tim McGraw plays her manager and her husband. And the movie takes place during this comeback tour all over Texas.
Thanks, Shana, for being here today. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Be sure not to miss The Greatest. Limited opening on April 2nd, nationwide on April 9th. Starring Pierce Brosnan, Susan Surandon, and Carey Mulligan. You're going to love it.
Mama, don't you know you keep the whole world turning round?
I knew this boy. We would pass each other every day after school in the exact same spot. And sometimes it would be so intense that we would start looking at each other from the very beginning of the steps. And on the last day of school, he talked to me.
Hey!
And everything was happening exactly the way it was supposed to. And I was the happiest I've ever been. He was everything I imagined he would be. And I was in love with him.
That this amazing young man who was so well loved was surrounded by everything that was beautiful to him.
Come on in.
I'm 3 months pregnant. I just can't believe she has nowhere else to go.
Are you really pregnant?
Yeah.
That figures. One bad thing my brother does, he's not even here to get in trouble for it.
Did you dye our son's hair blue?
Yes.
You know, when I went to the morgue, I thought they got the wrong boy because our son would never dye his hair blue. And then I saw his face, and it was our son. It was like he died twice.
That's enough.
You haven't made the slightest effort to get to know this girl.
I don't want to get to know her. Why can't you understand that? It should have been her that died that night. It should have been her.
It's not all about you and your grief, Grace. There are people in our lives who deserve our attention.
Did you not get a chance to see the body?
No. My mom came in to get me, and I couldn't even move. So I didn't get to say goodbye.
Angel wings spread over.
Do you think it might just be easier if you talked about him with Grace? You've been a good husband and a good father. Do you want to feel?
No.
He always kicks when he hears your voice.
I'm fine, thanks.
Please.
It's strong.
I barely knew him. I think he was the love of my life.
What would you say if someone asked you about this night?
I would say that this was the greatest.